when you are upgrading something, that means that you have a system that is working, and you want to upgrade it. If the system is not working, you better reset it, because if the fundamentals are not working, if the current economic architecture, the economic program is not working, you cannot upgrade it. You simply have to reset it. And fortunately, I'm doing some paper on the economy of Ghana. So I've had some time to look at the economic trajectory of Ghana. And I can tell you that what Dr. Bawumia seeks to upgrade will not work. And any economist, anybody who is sat in an economics class would get to know that it simply will not work. Because if you take all the indicators, you take debt to GDP, you take inflation rate, you take the deficit, you take unemployment, you take all the key macroeconomic indicators. When we were leaving office, they were better than it is today. If you take debt to GDP, we're left 56. Today, we don't even know our debt to GDP. We don't know. I mean, the Ministry of Finance says it's about 70%. Factoring in the sources of the haircuts, they haven't concluded yet. This week, they intend presenting their proposal to the Eurobond holders. So we don't even know the actual debt structure, let alone determine it. In terms of the ratings, when we're leaving office, better than today. Cocoa production, we left about 1 million. Today is slammed to half. Oil production, we peaked at about 190,000 barrels a day. It's dropped by 30%. Oil production, 30%. If you take inflation, we're at 15%. Today it's at 20%. If you take the policy rate, because the policy rate is what anchors the monetary policy. The policy rate determines how Bank of Ghana lends to other banking sector players, which has a cascading effect onto the final consumer. Terrible. If you take the lending rate itself, terrible. If you take unemployment, we've moved from 8% to 14%. If you take the deficit, we're in double-digit deficit. It's only the IMF that's come to correct the system, and now they are holding us in check. But for the IMF, we're doing about 16% of deficit. If you take financing, central bank financing in 2016, 0. And yet we achieve a very, very good deficit. Today, we had about 54 billion of central bank printing, not through the open market operations. The central bank has basically 3 tools, either the policy rate or what you call the discount rate. That's how they borrow or lend. Then the reserve requirement of banks, and then what you call the OMO, the open market operations. We are talking of printing money into the system, skyrocketing inflation to 54%. And when you do that, it means that there's so much money in the system. It's not backed by any productive value. And when you do that, it means that it pushes inflation. And so inflation went to 54%. I mean, that is unprecedented. And if you take our peers, both Francophone and Anglophone countries, Ghana's case is a basket case of worst scenario. Not even with the Anglophone countries. Take Tanzania, take Ethiopia, take Senegal, take Kenya, our peers. I mean, and if you read the budget itself, the Minister of Finance found it prudent to even list some of these countries. He gives a West African average, and then he gives African average, continental average, and then he gives a world average. If you take all of them, we are worse off in terms of our peers. So what are you upgrading? That is the question. What are you upgrading? Upgrading these negatives that I'm talking about. We simply have to reset the economy because the system is not working. And when you do a trajectory of the budget expenditure line, you realize that the MPP concentrates so much on recurrent expenditure, whilst President Mahama did about double of this in terms of capital expenditure. And capital expenditure is so important when it comes to anchoring the economy, because that means that you make the economy resilient, you make it strong, such that it faces headwinds. And when you face those headwinds, that is when your knowledge about the economy comes in. And I was following Dr. Bawumia the other day, and a lady asked a question. Now look, you've introduced a plethora of taxes. Ghanaians are complaining. The cost of living is very high. Today's inflation is above 20%. Why wouldn't you apply your economic knowledge to reduce the burden on the Ghanaian? And you know his response. That if he reduces the taxes today or abolish them today, when he becomes president, what would he do? I mean, such level of insensitivity.
And is it insensitivity or sincerity? Sincerity in the fact that he was not the president, or he is not the president to implement certain measures.
And yet he takes credit for some of the policies. At that program, he himself said, I initiated this.
Yeah.
So you only judge him based on his work schedule, what has been assigned to him. He's the head of the economic management team. And the president himself told us that he doesn't understand economics. So he depends on Bawumia. And here, right here, I was seated here, Gideon Walker was here. When E-Levy was introduced, Randy was the host. I asked Gideon, does Dr. Bawumia support the E-Levy?
He said yes.
He said yes. That Bawumia was an integral part of the passage of the E-Levy Act. President Mahama says he will abolish it. Then days after, he rushed to say he will abolish it. Then I asked him, but you said you support it. You are the economist. Why don't you abolish it today? He says, no, I want to abolish it today. If you want it abolished, then vote for me. I mean, what kind of double standard is that? Because he is part of cabinet, he is head of the economic management team, he supports these taxes. You impose these draconian, difficult, harsh taxes on Ghanaians. People are suffering. And when we ask you for a relief, you say that no, I won't touch it now. If you want it relieved, then vote for me as president. I mean, Ghanaians, we must send a strong signal to politicians that you can't take people for a ride. That you can't just dribble people around, mismanage the economy, run the economy to the ground. For the first time in the history of Ghana, we have defaulted on our international debt obligations. We are so broke that even domestic bonds, we cannot service it. Mostly, where you see a country's vulnerability is the external sector. Because for the external sector, you can manipulate it. As for the internal sector, because government has authority over its monetary policy, and you can just issue fiat money, normally you can manage it. We've defaulted on both sides. Even pensioners had to go and queue at the Ministry of Finance and picket. Our mothers, our fathers, old men and women went and sat under the sun. And you tell us that you want to upgrade this? Is this a record that you want to upgrade? And instead of you to eat a humble pie, say that, look, things have not gone well. We'll take a sober reflection. We'll change course. We'll do what is right and proper and put the economy on a sound footing. You tell us that you want to upgrade it. And simply you want to upgrade the suffering. Unemployment is 14%, you want to upgrade it.
The changes he wants to implement as when he becomes president is a way of resetting and then upgrade.
And then that is the reset. That's the reset we are talking about.
Because if you say you remove e-levy, you cut down government.
We are saying that let's change course. That's what we mean by reset. If your phone is not working and you do a factory reset, it means that you reset it and begin to download. Yeah. But if you want to upgrade, that means that the apps that are worrying your phone,
you still keep them.
You are keeping them and upgrading them. And what kind of analogy is this? And you want us to take you serious? Look, I just got a notice from West African Gas Pipeline. They want to shut down the pipeline because we are not servicing the debt. 2022 ECG's debt, 10 billion. 10 billion.
Are we done servicing the... there was this gas plant we shut down that we're servicing.
They haven't paid even one cedi. The debt has gone to $600 million. ENI has just issued a notice that they want to call on the guarantee. 600 million. West African Gas Pipeline, they just issued a statement. 12 million. ECG 2016 made a profit of 362 million. Profit. 2022, a loss of 10 billion. Billion. Not million, not 100 million. 10 billion loss. This economy is in tatters. This economy, there's nothing to write home about this economy. And the same man who superintended over this mess, over this rot that has put this country in this quagmire, he says that he wants to upgrade. Give us a break. Look, give us a break. Enough of the rhetoric. You saw how he was struggling. You saw how you could tell that, look, The man was fumbling because he is the head of the economic management team. He told us that he's arrested the exchange rate. And in 2019, not 2020, before COVID, the cedi depreciated by almost 14%. So this so-called COVID story, go and look at the fundamentals in 2019. The deficit was almost in twin digits. We were just doing below the line, above the line. We had issues with them. When they went under the IMF program, they reported the true figures. So they were just deceiving us. Everything was on deception. The debt kept rising. And we told them, as of 2019, the debt was going over 70%. Watch it. Dr. Bawumia said, we don't read. I'm not talking COVID, though. I'm saying before COVID. I'm doing before COVID analysis. The construction sector, negative. The manufacturing sector, negative. The key indicators began to show a negative trajectory. And when we warned them, they wouldn't listen.
Was it a period of the banking sector cleanup?
Banking sector was 2017, 18. I'm talking of end of 2019. End of 2019, when there are real policies. Because normally, in economic policies, there's always what doctor likes most, a transmission mechanism. If you implement a policy today, you normally might not feel he likes, I was watching where he likes the transmission. And it's true. I mean, if you implement a policy today, you might not feel the effect immediately.
Yes.
And that's why when you are doing economic analysis, you look at dynamic model. Because dynamic model then says that what happened yesterday and how does it affect today. So by 2019, their real policies began to show. 2017, they couldn't have taken credit for everything. Because even the budget was ready in March. It takes time to implement the policies. You spend. You normally would not see the effect. So at least even the first quarter results couldn't have been because the NPP government was spending. But by 2019, 2017, 18, end of 19, 3 years, their real policies were beginning to show. Because they were over-borrowing. In all President Mohammed's time, including President Mills, we borrowed 3.75 billion of Eurobond. President Akufo-Addo alone borrowed about 11 billion. And so when you borrow like 3 billion and you put it in an economy such as Ghana, immediately your currency stabilizes. Because you've brought in so much foreign currency. But over time, you begin to service that facility. Which means that even if you do what they did with Franklin Templeton, where they converted the Eurobond into cedis and paying 19.5% on $2.5 billion equivalent. When they take that cedis, it's of no value to them. They will go to the banking sector and demand foreign exchange to repatriate. And so you begin to see the effect on the economy. So my point is simple. And look, it's not just myself. Those who created the mess, those who brought us in this quagmire, cannot be trusted to resolve that problem. Let them go home. Let them reflect over their incompetence. Let them reflect over their mismanagement. Let them learn some lessons in opposition so that next time when they have the slightest opportunity to administer the governance of this country, they will take us serious.